Hello, this is JJ from Paranormal Talks, paranormaltalks.com. So we're back here with Penny Kelly, part 2. And before we jump into where we left off in part 1, I just want to show you Penny Kelly's website. Here it is. It's very lovely. Here's the home. She has a catalog. She also has classes. If you scroll down, you can see about Penny's YouTube channel, I Say to Myself. Penny also has a Tea and Consciousness event that you can check out on her website. So I just wanted to show you that. The name of her site is Consciousness on Fire. She's fired up. ConsciousnessOnFire.com. So please visit that site. Now, Penny, we were talking about us personally, how we are handling this building pressure of change and uncertainty moving into 2020. So we talked about how to handle that energy, how to make best use of it. I also want to wrap up around the area of a lot of us live in cities. A lot of us live in urban areas. How can we best handle the energy that's pushing at us right now?
There are so many innovations happening in the food system. Okay, so let me introduce a term. It's called agritecture. And what that is the building of huge, multi-story indoor farms in cities that will feed 200,000 people at a crack and feed them continuously everything. The innovations that have come with that are stunning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what we have really to deal with is the issue of the grand solar minimum and a cooling climate. There's been a lot of hype around climate change, and climate change it's real, but it's not getting warmer, it's getting colder. And there's more disruption. The grand solar minimum, we're already into it. It's
Yes.
probably going to hit its peak somewhere around 2030, and it's going to stay that way for 30 to 40 years.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 60 years. So the grand solar minimum is this period of time when the sun has very few sunspots, and sunspots, when that sun spits out that plasma, that stirs the pot, so to speak. It stirs the particles in our Earth's atmosphere, and that creates friction, and that creates heat. It just comes down to that simple.
Oh.
So when the sun is not stirring the pot, there's no friction and there's no heat. And in the past, the solar minimums, which recur about I think it's every 400 or 500 years, maybe more. There was one in the 1600s, so I think it's every 400 to 500 years.
Right, the 1400s, the 1600s, and there are really typical patterns of solar minimums.
Right.
This 2020, starting this 2020, is supposed to be the grand solar minimum. This is the coldest dip down in 250 years. Now, solar minimums also have to do with tectonic changes like volcanoes.
Yeah.
And
that's
volcanoes can spew so much ash into the air, into the atmosphere, that it blocks out what little sun we have. That is what we call a dark age. By the way, they had a couple of huge volcanic eruptions during the dark ages, hence the dark ages. They were literally dark.
Yeah, that's true. You get famines, crops don't grow. Crops have to have a certain many hours of light.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a minimum to that. My chickens don't lay eggs unless there's 14 hours of light per day. So they slow way down in the winter time because we don't have 14 hours. A lot of things are light dependent.
Yes.
And so, we're coming to this. We have to get creative. We have to do something. And so there are people that are now, if when you Google agritecture, I think there's a site called agritecture.com.
And,
You
and,
get
and,
an idea.
and it's a good investment area right now. If those who
It,
want to invest, it's at its nascent point. You may want to think about putting your money in one of those.
that's true. LG, which is famous for its washing machines and refrigerators, is
Yes.
now producing an indoor garden appliance for your kitchen, so that
Oh,
you can grow right in your kitchen, and it's all set up. You just put the seeds in.
so for urban dwellers, city residences, there
Right.
you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So another thing, for those in the north, in the far north,
Yeah.
I forget what the name of this guy's place is. I should have looked this up, but he's growing oranges in, I think it's North Dakota, all year round. And he's got this amazing greenhouse that's partly underground.
Huh.
It's stunning. It's just, there are innovations happening everywhere that are indicating people are recognizing we
Mm.
have to do something different here in order to be able to guarantee that we have enough food.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because we haven't thought of it as viable in the past, um, we just haven't thought about growing food indoors. It's like, why should I do that? Somebody else will
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Exactly. Well, that's part of being more independent and getting off the gravy train of government and benefits and big agricultural.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you look at what happened to the agriculture system this last year, oh, it just broke my heart.
What?
So many people were unable to plant, and I forget
Oh
what this.
my gosh, that's right.
I think we were
Crop
down,
failures.
yeah, 30 to 50%
Oh, it's
um,
terrible.
of what we normally produce.
It's terrible.
Now, I was looking ahead, and that looks okay this next year, but this coming year is like, okay, you have another year where you can maybe grow somewhat normally. But I want to make a comment about the
Well, you mean 2020 or 2021?
2020,
Okay,
this growing
2020.
season, so for
Okay.
the next 12 months.
Okay.
But what happens with the volcanoes is exactly what you pointed out.
Oh
When the sun
no.
is not producing sunspots and there's no heat in the atmosphere, the planet cools, and when it cools, it shrinks. When it
Oh.
shrinks, the pressure on volcanic material, magma, increases, and and the planet shifts. The
Oh.
result is that there's a lot of volcanoes, and they don't need to even block the sun 100%. They just need to reduce it a couple of percent, and that's enough for a plant to say, sorry, I didn't get enough light this year. So there's all sorts of new energy that is going to come out, I think, in this next couple of years. It's leaking out now.
Yeah.
um, and that is all to our benefit. There are new forms of energy out there that are based on magnetics and plasma that are just going to put your traditional electricity out of business over time.
And gasoline?
Gasoline, that was one of the things that I saw, um, is that gasoline and oil. Let me back up a step.
Mhm.
When Trump came into office, one of the first things he did was to make it okay to have more pipelines, to do more fracking, to do more digging, all of that. The reason he did that was so that we could cut our ties with Saudi Arabia and therefore cut our ties with that corruption.
Oh,
So big effort, the first stage of cutting that, of cleaning the swamp, it's not a swamp in the US, it's a global swamp. And
yes, it is.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, people think it's Washington, D.C.
Oh
No,
no, no, no. It's
no,
global.
that's a little, my grandma would say, that's a pea hole in the snow compared to the real swamp.
Right.
That is something that Trump had to do in order to guarantee that we had enough gas and oil on hand to keep ourselves secure and not subject to trade deals that were just not sustainable in the face of the corruption.
Yeah.
Most of those trade deals were, here, let the U.S. scratch your back, but nobody's scratching the U.S.'s back. And so he was cutting those, and people who were into the whole EPA thing, they were like, what's he doing? He's ruining. And he wasn't ruining anything, because most of those were slush funds. A lot of that EPA stuff was nothing but slush funds.
Ooh.
So he cut those and secured our energy sources long enough to give us this edge to be able to start making deals that say, well, look, we don't need you. So either do it our way or forget it. But what is going to come out, I think, more and more is that gas and oil have a huge amount of radiation associated with them that is never talked about. And that's one of the things that I was seeing in the future, is that it becomes clear to people over this next 12 months the level of radiation that's associated with gas and oil. Everybody talks about petrochemicals and all of that, but the big issue, at least the way I was seeing it, was that there's this really serious level of radiation, and it, people have always said, oh, it's only a small amount. Well, I think it's going to turn out to be more than, than what people think it is.
Really?
Yeah, and I had seen that. The reason I think I saw it is because I have 3 children, sons and grandsons, who are involved in the oil fields. And that piece of information just kind of came to me one day. It's like, I wonder how much radiation, because I was remembering when the Caribbean, what was that, drilling operation that spewed oil all over, they had an explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened, and there was some talk then about radiation, and that had remained a question for me since that time. Why would the radiation be killing the ducks and the geese and the fish and the turtles? What radiation? This is gas and oil. And then, a little bit of research, and then this huge, that was going to be coming up on the radar. And then just about a week ago, somebody sent me an article, and I don't know, I think it was from, what's the name of the Rolling Stone magazine, which I never read. Never.
Really?
And this headline struck me, something about radiation, and I thought, I have 3 kids involved in that field. So I read it and was like, oh man, this is going to become more and more of an issue. And as it does, we're going to begin to say, well, we can't do that anymore. We can't be having that level of radiation, when we have other options, and the other options really amount to magnetics and plasma physics and those kinds of things. Free energy, some people call it 0-point energy,
right,
etc.
Right. And those words have been appearing more and more online across the internet. And the word awakening is used more and more and more.
Hallelujah. It's time.
Yeah. It's time to wake up, sleepyheads.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So what other area do you want to go into now?
I think probably, well, let's see. So we've kind of covered, what do people personally have to be aware of?
Personally.
So I think probably, something to do with either the economy. People are forever, the economy is falling apart, et cetera, et cetera.
Well.
Or elections and things like that. I saw some interesting things about the election.
Tell us about that in this election year 2020.
It did not, well, it did not look like there really ever got to be a Democratic front runner. They just kept moving forward. It looked to me like, which I was surprised at, Elizabeth Warren actually ended up winning the, what do you call that, the nomination.
Right. Well, what about Hillary?
Oh, okay. No, it's not Hillary. Hillary doesn't really, oh, hang on one second here. Hillary doesn't really have, she's not going to come back into politics, even though she's talking like it, etc. I that her strategy has been, if I'm in politics, then I'm safe from any kind of prosecution or indictment. And Hillary has gone off to be the some sort of a teacher at an Irish university.
Wow.
She's setting up to have some kind of immunity over in Ireland. I don't know that that's going to work, but I did not see Hillary in the picture at all. She's going to try and slide out of everybody's consciousness, like, no, I don't exist. I'm
that,
not.
but that makes no sense.
Well, that's
knowing her personality profile, that makes no sense.
Yeah, well, she doesn't have a whole lot of choices.
So that's why.
Yeah, she burned an awful lot of bridges.
Huh.
I really feel sorry for her sometimes. It's like, I don't know what happened to her when you watch the evolution from this bright young thing to what she is today. It's like, what happened there? Something really serious happened, and I don't want to say what I've seen because it's just not useful or helpful to her or to anybody. But it looked like Elizabeth Warren beat out Bernie Sanders.
You're kidding.
Joe Biden.
Because January 2020, Bernie is moving ahead in the quote polls, and Biden is still in play.
Nope. I didn't see that. I mean, I think that they are going to have some fun with it, but Bernie's going to be decided as being too old and too sick, and Biden is going to be decided against because he's too corrupt, and the whole business of what's going on in Ukraine is going to come to the fore, and people are going to say, oh, okay, we don't want anything to do with that. Well, once Biden and Sanders are out of the way, there's only Warren is the only one left. And what I saw was, by God, she gives Trump a run for his money in terms of the election. And there are a lot of young people who really like the idea of being taken care of, because all of their paths into a future where they can count on having a better future than their parents, all of those pathways are closed because we're in a paradigm shift.
Yes.
Nobody has guided those young people into a structure that says, what are you doing with all this young, creative mindset energy? What do you want? They're looking for and leaning toward socialism, because socialism makes sure that you never grow up and you don't have to be responsible. Here, we'll take care of you, and that's, I don't mind socialism. It's really, really bad for the development of the power of consciousness. So I don't support socialism, even though I do support helping people out when they need help. And right now, my idea about support for those young people would be, let's organize them and get them to re-envision a new system.
Yes. Yes, it will be tough for them. Astrology also tells us the overall character and tone of a generation. The baby boom generation is dying off. Their generation had the Leo energy about it. The king of beasts, the king of the corporation. The CEO as king, where you take the lion's share of the profits. That's the baby boomer, Leo.
Okay.
element, and then we have the Libra and the Virgo and the Sagittarius, uh, all about spirituality and this new age stuff. Okay, all right. So this is where it gets serious. Is the generation with the Scorpio characteristic about it. The front edge of the Pluto, of the Scorpio generation, of the oldest one is about 33 years old now.
Wow.
Now,
Okay.
that generation is the one who's intended to destroy what we see right now, what we're used to living in. They destroy this civilization because why do they destroy it? Because they have nothing to lose, because they are at the tail end
Yeah.
of the Ponzi scheme, the Social Security Ponzi scheme, the Medicare Ponzi scheme, the taxing IRS Ponzi scheme, all of those. They're at the tail end. So they have nothing to lose. So they may
Yeah.
as well destroy it. And God bless them whenever they do. And then the next generation of the Capricorn
Okay.
characteristic, the front edge of Capricorn, they're 19 years old now. That's the oldest of the Capricorn type generation. They're
Okay.
the ones who rebuild society and the
Okay.
nation
Okay.
after the Scorpios tear down to the studs.
You know, a couple of months ago, I was kind of chewing and agonizing about what was going to happen and how could we maintain this and fix that and nurture such and whatever. And one day I realized, just full blast hit me in the face. Here I'm part of the baby boomer generation, born in 48.
Right.
So people think I'm really old. So
Well,
and so I ended up in this moment of realizing that I didn't know if what we had was worth saving.
saving, exactly. And right now it's not.
Yeah, it's not working for anybody. So
Right.
then I was like, I went through this day, it was only a day, thank God, of anxiety where it's like, oh my gosh. And then it struck me that we really needed to give the next generation permission to experiment. Because if we don't, and we just try to restore what we had,
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
Right.
And if we don't give ourselves that play of let's try this,
Mm-hmm.
and let's have some feedback mechanisms and see how that works and let it evolve to become something new and beautiful, then I think we will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't do that, we're going back to primitive, and
Yeah.
that doesn't really work for anybody.
No. No. No,
Yeah.
no. Penny, as far as the elections, our new administration, all of that, uh,
Yeah.
who's who's our new leader? Who's our new president? Who?
It's the same one we have now, and
Okay.
like Trump wins, he's still, in my looking, I will look and I'll see, is it a landslide or is it this or that? It's, you know what, the big emphasis is getting rid of the Democrats in the states, not getting rid of Trump. Trump is not the focus. It's the, oh my God, what are we going to do with these people who were so corrupt and who got sucked in? How do we how do we forgive them for whatever foolishness they did? Some of them got caught in bribery, some of them got caught in, some other stuff. And who wants to have all their dirty laundry hanging out there? So they would go along with stuff. Well, at what point do we say, okay, we're all human, and move ahead? So it's like, let's just vote them out quietly, let them go and, go home and deal with whatever. Let them go home and wash their socks.
Hmm.
Um, so the Trump looks to be the next president,
Uh-huh.
even though he didn't look like he won when I was looking just last week, it didn't look like he won by as much as he was looking like he would win last October, November through there. So I'm kind of watching. Is it going up and down? How's it looking? It still looks like he wins.
Yeah, yes. Okay, we have about 5 minutes remaining in this part two. Um, one last thing, if you got anything on this, is the Second American Revolution, which this is what it looks like. Just look at Virginia right now and what caused this. It's the Democrats who were all voted in the state of Virginia, started passing legislation against their constituents' wishes. And now look at the mess we got. And it's spreading all over the country. So what about that?
Uh, Actually, what I've seen is that really doesn't go anywhere. It goes places, but it's spotty, and it starts strong and then falls apart. And in the end, if there's anything that comes of that, it's not for another 3 or 4 years, and it serves to like regionalize the country.
Huh.
So, the fact that there's going to be constitutional challenges, and that's one of them.
Yes.
It doesn't really, it doesn't stand. And so that's a good thing. However, there's still a lot of division that is occurring as a result of that question of should we be allowed to have guns. So that's, I've looked at that and I thought it's really kind of paradoxical. People don't want to carry guns, but they don't want to give up the right to carry guns.
Yeah.
And then there's people who say, no, we don't want any guns. The regions that did look like there were some regions that enacted the entire, gun, you can't have any guns kind of things, or we're going to come and confiscate guns. Challenging, even after Virginia loses their constitutional challenge, there's other states that do that, and it just becomes this eventual sort of a wishy-washy, we're moving over to this region because they have their head on straight, and that's head on straight for yes, we can have guns, and other people are saying we're moving over there where they don't have any guns because they have their head on straight. And so it's like, what a mess. And that continues on for a few years yet, so it's too soon to call. It does succeed in breaking us up in terms of our loyalties. Okay.
Yes. Well, you know why the founding fathers put the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. You know why they put that in the Constitution, and it is the second one. It's not the first. It's not the third. Do you know why?
No, I really don't.
In case the government forgets the First Amendment.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I like that. I do know that it's true that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Mm-hmm. And we're right there. When you have politicians that can stay in power for 20, 30 years, they're going to get involved in some schemes and some deals that they shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to have to do some checks and balances in that kind of way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's term limits that a lot of people have been screaming about. Yeah, term limits. So after the collapse of the U.S. government as we know it in 2022, that's when it begins. Term limits may be put in place after that.
Yeah, and I think I see a lot of chaos in 2022, 2021, from the end, very, very, very end of 2021 through 22, 23, 24. Yeah. I'm hoping that gets better, goes away, gets fixed somehow. When you look and see something, you you look so that you can take appropriate action. I'm not sure we can avoid it because it's such a huge amount of momentum. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
Yes. The Socrates computer system built by Martin Armstrong of Armstrong Economics. Yeah. This is a 6-wave pattern.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
comes in 6 waves. Each wave is 8.6 years.
Oh, wow.
There are 6 waves, and the end of this pattern group is 2032.
Oh,
So it becomes even more exciting. So those dates you just mentioned of getting more and more exciting,
yeah.
which is a good way to put it. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't wrap up until 2032.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a
Well, that's
90%.
more than 8 years. So we must be at the end of one cycle and starting another.
Yes,
And
correct. Yes,
yeah,
we are at the bottom
the
of
previous 8.6 years.
of the 4th cycle, and then we have 2 more.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, so you're right. You're right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the Socrates system, 90% accuracy rate, 90%. Yeah, and it's a
Okay.
machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that's really, well, I guess maybe that's a sign or a signal that says, get ready physically, mentally, emotionally,
Yes,
spiritually,
yes,
financially,
yes,
family wise, you name it.
yes. We've had a 12-year warning.
That is true. Yeah, actually, I saw a lot of this stuff with the Little Men in Brown Robes way back in 1979,
Uh-huh.
80, or actually it was 80, 81, and 82. And I was so sure that they were crazy,
Wrong. Yeah.
that they were not
Mhm.
showing me anything that I really needed to worry about.
Mhm.
Um, that I, it's like, okay, now I'm looking at it and going, oh, brother, okay.
Mhm.
So, and at the same time that they were saying all these challenges that were coming, they were saying, and here's what you could create. So the big emphasis was on what are you going to create?
Create.
What do you want to
Yes.
do with your consciousness in that time frame? Because
Yes.
you can see it either as disaster or as opportunity, which is
Yes.
the old Chinese kind of thinking.
Yes.
So here we are.
Yep.
Is the
Yep.
glass half full or is it half empty?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, this wraps up part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, where Miss Kelly will tell us more of what's ahead of us in the year 2020. Thank you much. See you later. This is JJ.